Sunday night edition of the Crash the Pond podcast. Welcome back, everybody. It's been a week since we last spoke to you, and things have happened in the world of the Ducks. So we'll get into all of that. Excited for that. Jake, hope you're ready for this one.
I am.
We've got an intriguing show ahead. I think this could go a few different ways.
So, do I have to call you out already on this podcast?
Go for it. I don't know where this is going, but
If you recall last episode, you decided that your recurring bit was going to be what was the day of the month or the day of the year, whatever that day was, and you've already lost sight of that bit. No commitment from you. No commitment.
I take offense to that because I did have something lined up, and
You did?
now I'm just being gaslit essentially. So today, there's a lot of things going on today that I want to point out. First off, happy Holi to everybody. Celebration of ancient Hindu colors, or it's an ancient Hindu festival. Hopefully I'm not getting that wrong. It's also Lady Gaga's birthday today. It's also, now this is the big one. Well, it might not be big to me at least because I don't really like this option, but it is National Black Forest Cake Day. Important. Or possibly not important at all.
What is a Black Forest cake?
It's like a German chocolate cake, I think. Also, today's the beginning of British summertime, which they have a lot of rain, a lot of darkness throughout the year. Oh, Jake, I missed the obvious one.
What?
I missed the obvious one, and I am sincerely hoping that you celebrated this today and that you upheld it to its fullest possible extent. Do you want to know what I'm referring to?
I mean, I think I know what you're referring to, hopefully.
It is National.
Nope, not what I was thinking.
It is National Respect Your Cat Day. That is today's day.
I mean, that's every day. I thought you were going to go with actually a holiday with the fact that it's Passover, but
Was this just a way to bring that up, all of this?
No, it really wasn't. I actually was trying to loop a way into the fact that the NCAA tournament's going on and USC currently is holding a 17-point lead. 17.
Oh, it's also Palm Sunday. It's National Triglycerides Day. I feel like we shouldn't celebrate that, but it's also National Weed Appreciation Day, but not like the drug, like just weeds, like in your garden. So I don't know who appreciates that either. Who appreciates weeds?
Wow.
I don't know. Maybe they might serve some kind of botanical purpose, I think, though. Invasive species can be beneficial. I don't know. Okay. This is just completely and utterly off the rails.
I mean, I had to hold you accountable. You wanted to start this bit.
I actually didn't. I just planned to do my one bit last week, and then you forced this on me. So shame on you for making me scramble here for some holidays that may or may not have offended people. I don't know how this will land.
We'll find out.
Oh, and also tomorrow is National Mom and Pop Business Owners Day. That's important. That's really important.
Yeah.
So there's a lot to celebrate. There's always something to celebrate if you think about it. Celebrate the fact that the sun came up today.
Exactly.
Well, for the Ducks, there is a lot to celebrate because they won 2 games in a row against the St. Louis Blues.
They won 2 out of the 4 games this week. That's a big step up for them. That is above their normal points percentage on the week.
I believe it was their first regulation win in like a couple months.
It was their first regulation win since, I think, February 11th.
Mm-hmm.
I'll double check that really quickly. But I believe it was February 11th, which was a 1-0 win against the Vegas Golden Knights. And so fitting that their first win in regulation since then was another game where John Gibson absolutely stole the show and was the only reason that they won the game.
Yeah, well, maybe it had something to do with him being rested.
Who knows?
Him not being worn into the ground, but we can't say for sure, Jake, because we don't have enough of a sample size. It's just been one game of him, having had rest.
February 11th. Yes, it was February 11th. February 11th. And yeah, I did a little bit of digging, and if you look at since that game, I believe February 11th was the last time that John Gibson was significantly above expected. If you're looking at game logs, there was one game, I believe, where he was like 0.8 or something like that. Or sorry, not 0.8, 0.08 above expected against Minnesota. But the last time he was significantly above expected was that game against Vegas, where he was 1.15. And last night, or not last night, this would have been, what was that? Friday night, he was 1.23 goals saved above expected. So Not too shocking that the regulation wins can only occur when you have a goaltender playing above expected for this Ducks franchise. And not too shocking that I did the quick math on it yesterday. If you look at every start between or the amount of days off that Gibson had between that February 11th game and then the last game prior to injury, he averaged 1.6 days off between games. So basically, it was right around 1 to 2 games off typically, or 1 to 2 days off typically between games. And not too shocking that he finally finds his game after, granted, somewhat due to injury, but has some rest finally.
Yeah, I also just want to point something out really quickly here before we go into the deeper dive here into the nitty gritty. So for those who can't see the video portion of this show, Jake is rocking a USC tank top.
Yep.
And a headband.
You know?
A headband.
It's NCAA tournament time. Somebody's got to be rocking. I mean, USC is playing as we speak. They hold a 52-35 lead over Oregon. It's an Elite Eight berth on the line. USC hasn't made the Elite Eight since I was probably like 11. So definitely since before I was there. You know, got to rep my school. Well,
you didn't get into USC as a toddler?
No, I did not. Sadly,
not a child prodigy.
No,
Dang.
Graduated 2013. Got in started in fall 2009.
Wow, just dating yourself voluntarily.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting. Not the move I would expect. Okay, maybe we're just waffling here to avoid talking about this week. I don't know. I do think that one place I would like to start, and maybe you disagree with this, the Ducks made a trade this week, and
they did.
I feel like it kind of bears the bulk of this, or it deserves the bulk of this conversation because trades don't happen that often. And I don't want to say it was this hugely consequential trade, but it was somewhat noteworthy.
It was somewhat noteworthy. I mean, it was two guys that were second-round picks in the same exact draft. Taken, let me double check, but I believe it was like 15 picks away from each other at the end of it all. 12 picks, actually, between when Volkov was taken and Antoine Morand. And so the deal ended up being Alexander Volkov. I have no idea why. I keep wanting to call him Anton. No clue why. But Alexander Volkov traded for Antoine Morand and a conditional 2023 7th-round pick. The conditions on that is basically I believe the Ducks have a current trade where they could be giving up the 2023 7th-round pick. And so if those conditions come through, then it will be a 2024 7th-round pick. So no matter what, the Ducks are giving up a 7th-round pick. It's just which year it goes in. So it's Morand and a 7th for Alexander Volkov. To kind of break down the trade for everyone out there, Volkov is, I believe, 2 years older roughly than Antoine Morand, even though they were taken in the same draft. Alexander Volkov actually was in his final year of draft eligibility. He was a 20-year-old when he was taken in that draft and instantly came over to North America and actually found some decent success right away. In the 17-18 season in Syracuse, put up 45 points in 75 games. 18-19 put up 48 points in 74 games. And then last year was the first year that he started getting some NHL games, getting 9 games throughout the regular season. Only ended up getting 1 assist and 30 points in 46 games last year for Syracuse. And then this year for Tampa, he has 5 points in 19 games. And
and he's been mostly a fourth line over there, so I wouldn't look at that point total and think, oh gosh, this guy's not going to be any good. He has been playing a bit of a limited role there.
Yes. I think the one point of concern that you might have for him, he's 23 years old. And so he does have some room to grow, but if you look at some RAPM type numbers, it's a lot kind of in the negative portion. And so there is room to grow, but Tampa Bay is a really, really good team. And so for someone to have a negative impact, that is somewhat concerning overall. You would want to see someone have much better numbers when they are on a good team than if they're on a bad team. And so, because he's just in a better situation, better environment to succeed. And really the only place where he's kind of been able to thrive is actually his finishing, which is the one place that is kind of not a great place to find yourself, because that means that you're getting a bit lucky with your goals that you've scored or goals that you've been on the ice for. And so kind of all of this is to say that Volkov is a 23-year-old who is, I think, currently an NHLer. Whether he's a good NHLer right now, I don't know if I would go that far, but I think that I'm pretty safe in saying that he is an NHLer as of right now. And so the Ducks get a guy that will be on their roster right now, and he could potentially become a middle six type of talent. And what they're giving away is more of a skill type of player in Antoine Morand, who, granted, hasn't really been that successful so far during his stretch in the AHL. He only has 22 points in 74 games, so nothing actually near what Volkov was able to do. The concern, I guess, if you're a Ducks fan, when looking at Antoine Morand, is he's going to a Tampa Bay Lightning system that thrives in developing these types of talent. I think I was listening to the 31 Thoughts podcast, and they were talking about how that system is set up with guys that just know the Quebec League and those types of players and really develop those types of players. I mean, you have, I believe, Bo Grew is his dad is a coach in Syracuse. And so they're really known as kind of developing the smaller type of skill talent players. You have Yanni Gourde as a guy that's come through there. Braden Point's come through there. Now, granted, Point, I think, is a different level of talent. But I think that the one concern that you potentially have is Antoine Morand could go to Tampa and play in Syracuse and really kind of be in a position to thrive and succeed. And I think last episode we were talking about how with development of certain guys, a lot of times it's kind of, it is what it is. If they're going to become a talent, they're going to become a talent. But I think that there is something there for the more fringe type of players. And with that, it's mainly due to opportunity. And so the high-end players are going to get their opportunity no matter what. But I think with a guy like Morand, he needs to be put in the position to succeed. And so I think that he's going to be a guy that is have that happen in Syracuse and potentially could become an NHLer for Tampa.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's putting the cart before the horse just a little bit. With Antoine Morand, he hasn't shown a ton at the AHL level. I do agree with you though. Like I like Antoine Morand. I like, his mobility, his foot speed. He is a guy who was fairly productive in the QMJHL. I mean, consistently productive. Didn't see the kind of increase in his productivity though throughout his junior career that you would maybe like to see as a guy gets older in that league. But regardless, had a nice junior career. Didn't really translate to the AHL and has struggled this season. And we know how much the Ducks value points in their evaluation process. He has 6 points in 21 games this season, which, it's not great, but I think, like you were saying, maybe he wasn't in a position to succeed. Regardless, I think that however you slice this, Alexander Volkov has a greater chance of becoming an NHLer right now than Antoine Morand does. If you look at different models, like for example, one interesting thing I saw today on Twitter was a model that Elite Prospects uses from Jeremy Davis, who I would recommend you check out. He has his own model, kind of like the one we talk about with Byron Bader, which gives you kind of like the expected outcomes for a player. And, essentially, I don't have the full breakdown of the nuts and bolts of that model, but essentially, there's a pretty good chance that Volkov will be an NHLer. It's around 70%, whereas with Morand, that number is lower. So just looking at their skill sets, though, I did watch a bit of Volkov's games this season, and you can see why the Ducks like him. He's a bigger guy. He skates decently well, has some okay north-south speed. He's got good defensive IQ, I would say. Doesn't have a ton of skill, which is something that maybe if you're someone who wants this team to have an injection of talent, you're a bit disappointed by. But I do think that even if you are somewhat pessimistic that Morand will go over there and become something that he wasn't tracking to be with Anaheim, I still think the Ducks got a decent quality player for their lineup, a younger guy and a guy who is probably going to remain pretty cheap. He's an RFA this summer, and I won't imagine that he's going to break the bank, especially with his point totals this season.
Yeah. So our good buddy John, from the creator, everything behind Defend the Nest, follows the goals, chimed in our Twitch chat saying Morand was a very, very good penalty killer and drove the play well, even though his numbers don't indicate that, and thinks that maybe he had become expendable mainly because of Bo Grew has progressed faster as a forward.
Well, and the other thing is, it kind of sucks to say this, but teams, if you're a guy like an Antoine Morand who is 5'10", who is a little bit on the smaller side, and you don't bring that offensive value, teams have a harder time, I think, valuing that kind of player because they think, well, we have a bigger guy who can do the same job, who's maybe a little younger. And whether that's fair or not fair, I don't know. There are people on different sides of that argument, people that I think are pretty smart. So we'll have to see. I think that we are overplaying a little bit the Morand side of this. Like I said before, I like Antoine Morand. I think that he could have become something with the Ducks, but I think he might have become an Alexander Volkov type player.
Yeah.
I don't know if the skill was really translating. Maybe it'll happen. And I hope it does for him, honestly, because Tampa Bay is such a great system to be a part of. I think he'll get every opportunity there. But I like the
Yeah.
Volkov ad for the Ducks. I like this trade. I think that they did something that it's not sexy, but they traded uncertainty for more certainty
Yeah.
and a guy who will play. And there's just nothing wrong with that. And I feel like a lot of the anger towards this trade when it broke 4 days ago was that, well, the Ducks didn't address the central issue of their team. They didn't get the big piece. They didn't get that kind of home run talent. And it's like, well, not every trade is going to be like that. And it's okay to make trades on the fringes.
Yes. So let me just jump in briefly. So real quick, first off, before I touch on that, one fun note about this trade specifically is that there had been word coming out of Elliot Friedman had found out about Volkov going to the Ducks for a pick and a prospect. And for a while, no one knew who the prospect was or what the pick was, because the mum was the word on it, because the goals were playing at that point in time, and they did not want to have to pull Antoine Morand out of the game. So the trade was not finalized until after the game, and no one was releasing that it was Morand being traded so he wouldn't catch wind while he's on the bench, or no one would catch wind. And so he ends up scoring the empty net goal for the goals in that game, and then comes off the ice and finds out he gets traded. So kind of a little interesting note there. As for what you were saying, I think the main issue there that I have personally is I think this trade overall is a win for the Ducks. I think it's one that they get the better side of it. I think more likely than not, they got the NHLer out of it. I don't know if Antoine Morand's really going to become that. And so I think at the end of the day, they end up winning the trade because of that. I think the issue is that the actual impact on the Ducks is marginal. I think even though they won the trade, the impact to improve the team doesn't actually help that much. It helps, but not significantly. And I think that in the grand scheme of things, sure, you do need these trades to help you win. I think the frustration from my perspective is that these are essentially all of the types of trades that we've gotten of late. The majority of the trades Bob Murray's made over the last couple of years have been in this ilk, trading younger type of player on the fringes for a similar type of player, maybe one that's better, things like that. But at the end of the day, one that has very marginal impact, one on the fringes completely. I've said shuffling deck chairs a lot. This is not that, as you and I have discussed many times.
As you have fought me on hard. I guess I convinced you.
Maybe, but this is, I think the better way to describe this is a trade on the fringes. And so I think if we look back and this is just a footnote trade in the grand scheme of things in terms of this deadline, and maybe it's one we look back on in a couple of years as being one where Volkov is a significant piece for the Ducks by that point in time. But I think by the time the season's over and the deadline's passed and we look back, if the Volkov trade is one that stands out because there just weren't that many trades, I think that's an issue. If there are more trades that happen at the deadline that push this team forward through the rebuild, then sure, this one's fine. But it depends on where this thing goes. I think as of right now, with this being the only trade that's happening, I think in the vacuum of this trade, it's fine. But in the big picture, it is concerning. I think if we, in the next week or two, the deadline is, 2 weeks from tomorrow is when the trade deadline is. And so if there is a Rakell trade, if there's all these other trades, and this is just the first of a bunch, then I think it's fine. No issues. Like, it makes the team better. It's on the fringes, but it's not really one that's going to impact a lot this year. If we look back and this is the only trade of this trade deadline, I think that's a big issue.
Okay. But let's just deal with the information that we have right now.
Agreed.
I
just wanted to lay it out there.
And I'm not trying to move the goalposts around. I agree that when a trade happens, you have to consider it within the bigger context, within the context of the team and where it's headed and where it's been. And I think the Ducks have screwed up trades like these before. They have made these kind of like for like trades, or maybe more like the so-called shuffling the deck chairs.
Look at how they're handling Danton Heinen right now.
Yeah, like Danton Heinen for Nick Ritchie at the time. We were kind of so on it. I think I was maybe okay with it because of Heinen being a fine player, but I wasn't. I just didn't understand the logic of trading in Nick Ritchie because he was already good for the team. And I know that there are people who just will never agree with that, and that's perfectly fine. Have it your way. but I'll have it my way. And I think that he helped that team. Now, what the Ducks just did here is they flipped a guy in Morand who hadn't played for them yet, who was kind of a guy who was learning and finding his way in the AHL, who may one day get there. There are people who definitely like him. For a guy in Alexander Volkov who is there, who is an NHL player, might not be a great one, but has the potential to become a decent NHL player. And that checks out. That logic checks out. I think that for the rebuild, you're bringing in a younger guy who's a little more polished, who's a little more there. You're not really giving up much potential. So it's just a good trade. And yeah, it is a bit of a nickel and dime type trade. I totally agree with that and appreciate that. But look, you got to get these right as well if you're going to make them.
Yes, agreed. And I think
was it a move that needed to be made, quote unquote? No, maybe not. But you still got just a little bit better. And if you can hit on these types of trades consistently, then that adds up.
Yeah, and I think it's one that doesn't necessarily move the needle, but I mean, we'll see. I mean, like you said, there are people that think Volkov could be a really good player.
Yeah, like JD Burke, for example, who's the editor-in-chief at Elite Prospects, or an EP Ringside, sorry, who, we love that site. We've used their draft guide heavily, is really high on Alexander Volkov and thinks he could drive a line. And I find that interesting because when I watch Volkov, I don't see a lot of skill there, but I do see a guy who does understand where to be, fills lanes, back checks, back pressure, that kind of thing. And that can have value to a team. And if the skill can come along at all, then you have a very interesting player. I just don't know if the Ducks are necessarily the team to bring that out of a guy.
Yeah, and here's my one other thing, and this will kind of be a nice little transition to the games from this week. I don't really know how much I trust, and I mean, maybe as I'm thinking this through, I was going to say, I don't know how much I necessarily trust Dallas Eakins to have a new guy come in and essentially put him in a role to succeed, seeing as he really hasn't done that with a whole lot of players, put them into positions to succeed. And the only times that players are done, or that happens to players, when they actually score, and it's actually production driven and not on ice play driven. And we've seen that with Troy Terry now, with Dallas Eakins singing his praises now that he scored, even though I love
now that his agent whispered to the media.
Do you think that plays a part in it at
all? We can't rule it out.
I view it as it's purely production based.
Well, no, yeah. So I think that him getting the initial opportunity to get back in the lineup, there may have been some outside pressure there, but now that the points are there, knowing that this is the Ducks' primary evaluation metric, then yeah, it makes sense. So yeah, like Terry has earned the confidence now. But man, did you see some of the quotes from Eakins today? Or I guess it was from yesterday about Terry?
Yeah, it's baffling. I feel like I've used that word so much this season. It's the best word I've got for.
You're just perennially baffled.
But yeah, like no, I have a running tweet at this point in time, a running gimmick where the lineup comes out and I just tweet out, every single game, Dallas Eakins finds a way to surprise me every single time. It is legitimately impressive at this point in time how much he makes changes to the lineup in a way that just is suboptimal. The fact that he scratched Trevor Zegras today, the fact that he's continuing to roll with 11 forwards and 7D, even though Jamie Drysdale wasn't playing due to the injury. There's just so many things about so many things that he's done that just, they don't make any logical sense. If you try to make up the logical reason for it, you find yourself jumping through hoops to get there, and it's bizarre. And so
there are people who will try to justify.
Oh yeah. I mean, Adam Henrique, the waiver, the send down, all was a motivational tactic for him.
It was all just one big motivational tactic. Well, I mean, so Eakins had this to say about Terry at yesterday's practice. He said, after saying how Terry is their most improved player this year, which I think is kind of fair, although he's not that dissimilar from who he's been. He said, he used to be a guy I'd make sure that we would protect late in periods. Wasn't a chance I'd get him on the ice in the last 5 or 6 minutes of a period. That's greatly changed now. It's there's just so many things wrong with that statement. First off, why this need to protect guys? Does Dallas Eakins think that the game changes in the last 5 minutes? Is there something that just magically changes about the sport of hockey depending on the amount of time left on the clock? The risk of being scored on is actually the same throughout the game, whether it's at 5 minutes or at 15 minutes. A chance against is still a scoring chance against. So it's just funny how he he compartmentalizes those last 5 minutes as only a guy like Derek Grant, can be trusted in those minutes.
Yeah, and like I'm looking at some of Adam Henrique's early games from the season. He had a rough first 4 games of the season, and that was when things were kind of really struggling. Just to kind of disprove this quote this narrative that's come around.
Do you want to talk about today's game since it's the most recent?
Sure, but real quick on this.
Okay.
Adam Henrique.
Well, it plays into the Henrique is why I brought it up.
Adam Henrique, after the first game of the season, or first 4 games of the season, where he was sub 35% expected goals for percentage in all those games, was highly above 50% in basically every game from that point on, leading up to him being waived. There were a couple games where he was lower, small sample size with time on ice and things like that. I think one of those games was the game that he was scratched for or was benched in. But he's been perfectly fine up until up until being waived, and it's not as if that basically the only difference between pre-waiver and post-waiver is production.
Yeah,
and like
exactly.
And here's the thing: we all know goal scoring streaky. We all know guys go through slumps. There's a reason why we don't. An NHL season isn't 20 games typically. Like it's because guys get hot and they score over a 20-game stretch and then it falls off. Like it's bizarre to me how much small sample size theater the Ducks coaching staff buys into.
Well, not just the staff, like this whole franchise, like the whole front office that they buy into it. Yeah, well, let's talk about today's game just since it is the most recent.
Yep.
It is the freshest in people's minds, and I guess maybe we can work our way back. I don't know.
Yeah, let's do it that way.
But the Ducks did win 3-2 today, and some noteworthy things going into this game. So on Friday, Jamie Drysdale sustained kind of an awkward hit. His feet kind of slipped out from underneath him using the splits, and he got hit up high. And he did practice. He did practice yesterday in a lighter practice, and I think he was actually available to play today. He was a healthy scratch, but I think the Ducks just wanted to keep him out of this series just because of the quote unquote physicality of it and how feisty that these games can get. So he was kept out. Trevor Zegras was scratched today, which wasn't too surprising given how Dallas Eakins kind of lit up Trevor Zegras in his press conference yesterday.
Let me ask this: Has Trevor Zegras played in any back-to-backs this season?
He has not, and tomorrow there is a game,
yes.
And I think that could be a part of it. But when you look at the way that the way that he talked about him yesterday, it did seem like there was some performance element to it. It wasn't just purely like a schedule thing, because he said he had a rough game. He said he had a rough game on Friday. He insinuated that Trevor Zegras isn't all the way prepared for the NHL. Like he kind of just threw him under the bus, if you're asking me. Now, maybe I'm not the best person to ask, but it wasn't too surprising when you saw Zegras was scratched. What was surprising, and what continues to be surprising, what continues to be baffling, as Jake so eloquently put it, is that this team keeps doing the 11 forward 7D. Why?
It makes no sense. So in 3 of the 4 games this week.
Well, before we tear it down, let's at least, is there a case for it? Is there a case to be made for this?
The case for it is this. The fact that you think that you run a better chance with having an extra defenseman on your roster because you have a better better 7th defenseman than you do 12th forward, and basically jumbling up your forward lines and not having line consistency is a fine thing for you to have happen to your team if you can end up having 7 defensemen out there that make your team better, and especially if you have a guy where you're trying to limit his minutes a little bit. The other thing is maybe you have a defenseman like what the Ducks did with Corbinian and Holzer years back, where you end up playing a forward or a defenseman at forward every once in a while, and so you're able to have that flexibility. So anytime the 4th line goes out, you send out the 7th defenseman with them as your forward, and then you can also have them play defense when you want to. And so I think that's part of it. I do wonder how much of this is something I'm working through right now in my head, figuring out is. I wonder how much of it is penalty kill, because I think that the Ducks aren't comfortable having Welinski or Drysdale typically out there on the penalty kill, and so they want to get the 7th defenseman who would be on the left side, what would have been not tonight but the night before, in Ben Hutton, getting him there to be able to have another defenseman that they're more comfortable with on the penalty kill.
Here's a thought.
Mm-hmm.
Just play your 6 best defensemen.
Yep.
And just get over it.
Did you notice how much how many hoops I had to jump through to be able to try to get to some sort of logical conclusion?
Well, yeah, and the thing is that could be a reason, and that reason could even be true, but that reason is still not valid to me because it does still hamper your team. And look, I know that this is kind of just bad luck, and this is out of the coach's control, but in 2 of the games where the Ducks have had 11 forwards, they've sustained an injury up front. And if you're already at 11 forwards and now you're down to 10, that is far worse than if you were at 5 defensemen having 6 to start with, right? I think I did this math earlier, and I think the percentages work out.
Or having 11 forwards and 6 defensemen. 11 forwards and 6 defensemen is better than 10 and 7. It's just this was the biggest concern coming out of this game, despite the fact that the Ducks won, is that Rakell sustained a very nasty fall, and essentially he was just kind of minding his own business away from the play, skating down ice, and Kyle Clifford just lost an edge skating near him and slipped out and just took Rakell's legs out from underneath him, and Rakell fell flat on his back on the ice, and it appeared that his head may have collided with the ice. Regardless, if it wasn't full-on head contact, there was at least partial head contact, and he looked badly shaken up. He was not only was he down for a while, but 2 guys had to help him off. He was, his legs, if you watch fighting at all, like UFC or boxing, you could tell his legs were kind of given out from underneath him. It was hard to watch, honestly. It was very concerning. Now, maybe it'll all be fine, but hope.
And I don't want to speculate too much, but if there's no concussion there, I would actually be shocked.
Yeah, hopefully it's not that bad. Hopefully it was held out for precautionary reasons. Hopefully all is well.
Oh, it wasn't precautionary. I mean, it was precautionary.
No. I'm saying hopefully that's the case, but most likely it's not.
If he gets held out.
Yeah, that they held him out of the game. So, yeah, it's scary. I mean, it was a scary moment. It's also, just purely talking about it from the Ducks' perspective, it's also scary because of the fact that Rakell was the best trade chip for the Ducks. And
that's the thing, is that you don't you have to be kind of careful when you talk about it this way, but it is just part of the reality that Rakell is a guy that we know they have. It's a guy that we know that they have at least been shopping or that they're talking to teams with, and him being just completely out like this or not completely out because we don't know that yet, but him being banged up like this could potentially throw a massive wrench into their plans, and that could affect the future of the team.
Yep.
So it's just kind of a disaster, but we don't know that for sure yet. I mean, we don't have any updates, but man, just seeing the way he went down, seeing the way he came off, I would just be shocked if there isn't at least some significance there. And by the time you're listening to this, we might, you might already know.
You probably will know, at least with the fact that the Ducks are playing tomorrow, if you're listening to this, today,
there's just no way he plays Monday night.
Probably not.
It feels very, very unlikely.
Yeah, probably not.
Yeah, and we don't have any confirmation from anybody on his status.
Let's jump into the game. So, yes, 7 forwards, 7D, 11 forwards really doesn't make a lot of sense. It really shuffles your lineup. It basically goes beer league with your forward lines. The fact that you're rotating a winger throughout if you want to do it that way, or you're just not playing a lineup, and so you're expending more energy. And the other thing is, and this is something that I hadn't thought about till right now, the Ducks are playing in back-to-back games. So, why would playing 11 forward 7D be the reasonable thing to do on the front end of a back-to-back? All you're going to do is tire out your forwards by having them play significantly more minutes than they're used to, and then they're going to have to then fly to Denver in the high altitude, play in the high altitude. The Ducks are going to look gassed tomorrow. It's going to happen. Expect that to happen. So, and that's the thing. And the player, first off, that people are going to call out the players for it. That it's going to be a situation where the players are they don't have energy, they're not playing hard enough, they don't have heart, all this different stuff. And it's no, the coach put them in a position to fail with it.
Yeah. Well, so yeah, I'm not really seeing any confirmation on Rakell. I'm just kind of searching a little bit more here. Apparently, he was in the locker room after the game, was talking to people, so at least there's that. And so another thing from Elliot Tiefert here of the Orange County Register is that part of Zegras being scratched tonight was so Danton Heinen could play, which and this was something Dallas Aiken said, which I don't know if we've already discussed that here. I don't think we have.
Not yet.
Everything's blurring together. But that also seems odd, right? Why does it have to be one or the other?
Play both.
What?
Play both.
Play both. I mean, that seems like an option. I'm pretty sure that they said that just to give a reason. I think if you kind of read between the lines, I just don't think that they wanted Zegras in this game. I thought that they probably think that he really struggled on Friday. And then he is expected to return on Monday if Rakell can't play, which is also a weird line because was he just not going to come back otherwise if this hadn't happened? Anyway.
So let's jump into the game a bit. Anthony Stolarz ended up getting the start in the game, which
that is the story. That is the big story of this game is Anthony Stolarz.
Yes, because John Gibson, as it came out, was hurt with an upper body injury. And so significant that they decided to play Anthony Stolarz as compared to Ryan Miller. Maybe a sign that Dallas Aikens finally is understanding that Ryan Miller is a little bit past or on the downhill now and is not that great anymore. And he really should start looking at what he has in Stolarz. And I mean, early on, Stolarz kind of looked a little bit shaky, I think. Had some weird rebounds, did a good job of clearing them once they were basically in front of him, but he kind of had some weird rebounds in weird situations. And so the Ducks ended up actually getting down early in this game, 2-0. One was on a really nice tip by Ryan O'Reilly in front, and then one was on a penalty kill early on.
Perfect one-timer from Tarasenko.
Perfect one-timer from Tarasenko. Yanni Hakanpää, I think, had a little bit of a rough go of it in the first period, had some bad turnovers in the offensive zone, was kind of all over the place a little bit defensively. Took the penalty.
The vendetta continues.
Yep. Took the penalty to put the Ducks on the penalty kill in that game, or right there. And so, and so Anthony Stolarz ended up, I think, really keeping the Ducks in this game, though, because, I mean, let me put it this. I don't think the Ducks played a good game tonight.
No, they really didn't. They got hemmed into their zone a lot. They were just kind of playing that sitting back style. Now, you could ask yourself how much of that is fatigue and only having 10 forwards available to you. And I would say maybe it does, but we have seen the Ducks play like this with the fully healthy lineup before. And it is kind of funny that, despite having 7 defensemen available to you, you still are just awful defensively. Like there's just something about that just kind of cracks me up. You can only throw so many defensemen at a problem. But the Ducks did get some nice contributions from their veterans, the so-called disappointing veterans. I mean, Cam Fowler picked up his 3rd goal of the game on a really nice play, a zone entry. Yeah, of the season. Yeah, Ryan Getzlaf and Max Jones entering the offensive zone. Fowler with a nice finish. And then in the 3rd period, I mean, this was a really nice play from Adam Henrique, another nice little feed from Jones on his backhand. And then Henrique dances around his defender and finishes it off on his backhand in front, just all alone. And that would take it to overtime. And Anthony Stolarz, who had basically allowed the Ducks to survive the last 5 to 10 minutes of the 3rd period, just stopping everything in sight. Josh Manson passes it back to him because the Ducks are trying to reset. And Stolarz just rifles it back out the ice to Manson, who dances his way into the zone and scores on the backhand. So fun end to the game if you're a Ducks fan. I mean, it was an entertaining game, but I just don't think the Ducks played well at all in this one.
And I mean, this is what happens with hockey. I think it was, the Blues, let's be honest here. The Blues aren't this powerhouse team.
They're not that good.
No. They're actually closer to the Ducks than a lot of people think at 5-on-5 in terms of expected goal models. And the other thing to note is that the Ducks actually had a couple really good games against the Blues in some of their losses earlier on in the season. And so, I mean, this is kind of what happens. You'll have some games that you end up losing that you should win, and you win some games that you should lose. And so I would say that this may have been a little bit of a regression to the mean for that. But if we're evaluating this team on the whole, this is not a good game. I mean, the Ducks ended up losing the expected goal battle 1.87 to 1.49 at 5-on-5. They lost the scoring chance battle. They lost the high danger chance battle. They actually had more high dangers, 8-7. And then Corsi 4, they lost that battle. And so they were on the wrong end. They did have some nice stretches where it was looking really rough for a little period of time, and then they had some nice chances that went their way that really kind of got it a little bit back to even. But the Blues at the end of the game looked like they were going to score the game-winning goal late on, and the Ducks just held on to survive with Anthony Stolarz really standing tall at the end for them. And so I think if you want a good takeaway from this game, obviously the Josh Manson goal's nice. There's a whole lot of things that you could maybe look for a positive. I think Danton Heinen looked okay in his return. I mean, Heinen's a guy that really should just be playing every night. I mean, he's such a good... Like,
I truly don't understand how it's gotten to this point.
Like, I mean, granted, tonight was not great for him. 40 or 18% expected goals for percentage, but
he was kind of all over the place because I think
I was gonna say that's what happens when you play 11 forward 7D.
Yeah, I mean, I think the thing with Heinen that I could see why coaches don't value him is because he does tend to break up. Like, if you watch him, he'll break up plays in the defensive zone. He'll break up plays in the neutral zone. He'll carry the puck back up the ice into the opponent's territory, but he doesn't have like the highest success rate on his passing, his shooting. Like, he's not the most skilled player. But what I think the coaches miss is that he gets those opportunities quite often because he's doing his job on the other end in the two other zones. And I think that they're judging kind of the end result more than the overall process, which is supposedly a thing that coaches don't do, right?
Yeah.
They look at the process, but actually maybe they don't. And so I think I could kind of see why. And look, the numbers don't look great for him tonight. I will say though, the numbers look awesome for tonight.
Who?
Once again,
Troy Terry,
63.53 expected goals for percentage, and looked every bit as good as those numbers would indicate. I think that he looks like, maybe this is a bit of conjecture, a bit of narrative street, but he just looks like an everyday player now. Like, there's just, now that you're hearing it from the coaching staff, now that you're hearing it from the actual organization, that he is a part of that he's essentially a part of the team now. I think that he's taken off. Like, he's taken off in a big way, and he's putting up absurd numbers, like from the underlying perspective and even with the production. And even for him, I think this is a bit of a level that we haven't totally seen yet.
I was going to ask, do you think it's that different? I think that he does look better. I think the Minnesota series, he looked better than he had the rest of the season, but I don't know if it's this massive jump that the coaching staff has made.
No, it's not. No, it's not this massive jump, but it is pretty noticeable just in terms of like how consistent it is. Like, he's not really having those games where you're scratching your head. And he was having a couple of those in the beginning of the season. Of course, I would argue that those shouldn't overshadow the other good games that he has, right? Regardless, all this to say, however you want to slice the apple, he's just playing really well. He's one of the best players in this team. And it's just awesome to see that he's getting recognized for it by his actual coach.
Yeah.
And, from a selfish perspective, we've been beating this drum for about a year now, and it's nice to be proven right. It feels good.
It's nice to know that my eye for talent isn't completely off.
Yeah, like it's nice to know that you're on the right track, that you're not completely missing.
Yep, and
the bigger picture.
And I think the big positive, I think this is where I was going to go with it, was the fact that I think Anthony Stolarz looked like a viable option as a backup for the Ducks next season. I think that is now you don't want to judge everything off of one game. We were just giving the Ducks management and Ducks coaching staff a hard time at small sample size theater, so you don't want to do that. But I think that if you're looking for positive signs, that is a positive sign that Anthony Stolarz could be a viable option as a backup next year. Now, in order you need to give him more games to find out if he actually is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I mean, and I'm going to put on my goalie guild hat here for a second, whatever that looks like. I thought that he just the way he was moving in the net, just very, very economical with his movements, right? And you hear that a lot. What does that actually mean? Just not a lot of slippage in his game. When he was in that crease, it felt like his movements were precise. He wasn't just swimming out of the crease. He wasn't getting caught out of position. He wasn't playing like Ryan Miller has the last little bit. And he is a pretty big guy. And look, when a big guy can play that solid of a technique, it can be daunting for the opposing shooters. Now, he didn't have to make these big athletic saves, but I think a lot of shots were just hitting him in the chest because he was in good position.
Yep.
Now, once he gets tested more, and you saw it in this game, like the tougher shots, like the Tarasenko shot, the tip shot, like those are going to go in, right? And he's not this kind of world beater, but if he can just be an average backup, if he can just be
the Ducks,
what's expected of him, that's already a win for this team.
The Ducks need him realistically to play 30 games next season. So that 20 or 30 games is what they need. Who knows, Jake, if they would.
Jake, why don't you have that debate with John Gibson about having the
Oh.
backup play 30 games?
Can I just
Why
say
don't,
this? There was that
well,
quote. There was that quote from Dallas Aikens. It was after the game on Friday. Eric Stevens had asked Dallas Aikens if this is a sign that he should rest John Gibson more. And Dallas Aikens basically said, like, I get where you're going with this, but he's like, you try to argue with John Gibson about playing time. And it's like, he's like, part of Dallas Aikens' job is managing his players. And I don't care if he's a franchise player or the franchise cornerstone as a goalie. You need to be able to manage his minutes to get the best out of him. Because here's the thing. Playing him more now not only makes him worse now, as we saw from the minutes the data that I kind of looked at with rest and things like that. So it's not only giving you a subpar on-ice product now, it's hurting him in the future also. So it's hurting the franchise in the future because you're adding more wear and tear to his body. And so there is legitimately like no benefit to the Ducks now or in the future to play him as much as you've played him. And it is on the coaching staff to sit down with John Gibson and explain that to him and lay it out for him in that way, saying, hey, when you have this rest, you end up playing better. We are going to rest you more so you can be better for us in the long term, so that you can be better for this franchise, so you'll be there for this franchise. And I mean, it's not rocket science. I say this so much, but this isn't that hard.
yeah, it's not even like high school chemistry. It's just like, don't play your starting goalie too much.
Yeah,
I'm pretty sure that was a rant.
that was a rant.
I'm loving the comment from Dalton Keys in our Twitch chat. Go off, King.
Thank you.
Go off, King.
Thank you. So I think before we jump into some of the other games, I think it's time for a word.
We're 45 minutes deep. I don't know how that just happened.
Yeah, I think it's time for a word from our sponsor. So this tournament season, take care of your hair and other areas with the best tools for the job. We're talking about our sponsors, Manscaped, the global leaders in grooming from head to toe. When the clock winds down in March, be clutch and avoid the upset with the Manscaped Performance Package to keep all your hair and other areas tamed. Manscaped is trusted by over 2 million men worldwide. Join the Manscaped movement and start taking care of your balls today with 20% off plus free shipping by going to manscaped.com and using the code CTP for our exclusive offer. So, Felix, I mean, the NCAA tournament's going on right now. USC currently has an 80-66 lead with 1 minute, 23 seconds left in this game. So, come on, Trojans, finish it off. But your bracket isn't supposed to be perfect. But with the Manscaped Performance Package, you can be confident that your nose, ear, and private areas are. The Manscaped Performance Package is the ultimate men's hygiene bundle and #1 overall seed this season. So, included in this package is the Weed Whacker for you, which I have to say,
How do you feel about long nose and ear hair?
Well, I can tell you that I was actually told
tell us a funny nose hair, ear hair story.
I mean, I had one lined up. The right before this show, my wife told me, she's like, your nose hair is looking long. You need to go use your Manscaped Weed Whacker before the podcast so that it's looking nice and fresh on the show. So my nose hair has been freshly trimmed just for this show, and it worked out perfectly.
If you don't have the Weed Whacker, you may have to pull your nose hair out. And let me tell you,
that's the worst.
As someone who has done this,
it's awful.
When I legit cry.
Same.
Like there's just no other possible reaction.
It's miserable.
So get the Weed Whacker. Don't do what we do. Don't yank your nose hairs out and get that Weed Whacker.
It's proprietary skin safe technology which helps reduce nicks, snags, and tugs in those delicate holes. Look, fellas, 79% of partners polled admitted the long nose hair is a major turnoff. So why not use the best tools for the job here? And my wife would definitely be included in that. Also included in the bundle is the Lawnmower 3.0 trimmer, the best trimmer on the market for your balls, butt, and body. I thought that said balls, butt, and booty. I was like, that's a little bit redundant.
That would be redundant.
That would be a
but
little bit.
But it is, the Lawnmower, the 3.0 is, to me, the central piece here. The pièce de résistance, you might say. It just works really well. I mean, the technology you were talking about earlier with the skin safe, like I am someone who, when I use just like a normal, awful non-Manscaped trimmer, like I get really bad irritation, and I I can say 100% I do not get that with the lawnmower. And I appreciate that. So thank you, Manscaped.
Yeah, thank you for that. And so also as part of their performance package, you also get 2 free gifts, their Manscaped boxers and the Shed travel bag. The boxers are very, very nice.
They're comfortable.
Talk about comfort. Yeah, they are some of my favorites. And their mop wipes are great. And so you can get 20% off plus free shipping with the code CTP at manscaped.com. So thank you, Manscaped, for making all of our holes look sexy during the dance. Get 20% off and free shipping with the code CTP at manscaped.com. That's 20% off with free shipping at manscaped.com, and use the code CTP. When things get hairy, make sure to call on Manscaped in clutch time. And speaking of clutch time, USC looks like they're about to close this thing out. 28.9 seconds left, 82-68 lead. Looks like USC and UCLA could be on a collision course in the Final Four. If they USC is facing Gonzaga now in the Elite Eight. UCLA is going to be playing Michigan in the Elite Eight. This is going to be fun, and it's also going to be miserable for my household because my wife is a UCLA alumni and I'm a USC alumni.
Yeah, you have that rivalry going. I'm just loving the commentary, by the way, in our Twitch chat about your read there, about your ad read. Yeah, it is. Yeah, that is a good point, ODog81, that it is National Weed Appreciation Day, but that's specifically for weeds in your garden, not the weeds in our noses and ears. So anyway, hopefully that I didn't want to offend the National Weed Appreciation Day Society. Wouldn't want to do that.
So thank you, Manscaped.
We're an inclusive podcast. What can I say?
USC won. USC did win now. I'm happy.
Don't care.
So one of the Ducks that played today won.
Yes. Don't. Yeah. Sure. Okay. Good one. Good one, Jake. Good one. Good one, Randy.
I was proud of that one, but that was
good one, Randy.
That seems like a good one, Randy moment.
Well, yeah, but you were on a good tilt there with the rant.
I know.
I thought I was going to have a rant tonight. I thought I did, but I think I've just mellowed out. I think you took all the rant energy.
What was the rant going to be on?
Well, every time you tweet these days, you just get pushback on different things. You get people stalking down like a thread that they're not even a part of just to make a point, a gotcha point. So it kind of set me off for a bit, but I think, had a nice Italian sandwich from my local deli before this. So just kind of mellowed me out. No problems. Life's good.
There you go. So time to move on to the game before this one, which was the game on Friday night where the Ducks ended up picking up the 4-1 win. And the Twitter trolls were out for me that night because once again, prior to the game, Dallas Eakins went with 11 forwards, 7D, decided to play for some reason. Can you tell me what Andy Welinski has done to get into the lineup for multiple games here?
Well, can you ask me what he's done, and can you also ask me what Cody Curran has to do? These are the two competing questions. Well, Andy Welinski, he's just a longtime AHL favorite of Dallas Eakins. That's the only explanation I have. There's just a personal connection there, and it's a bond that is just never going to be broken.
What's shocking is in that game we actually got Jacob Larson being scratched for the healthy scratch for the first time this season, and Andy Welinski stayed in the lineup for. I cannot the fact that they continue to go with 11 forward 7D while scratching Larson is just
well, and also one thing we should know is that Larson was all the guys that were in COVID protocol during the week came out of it.
Yes,
and so
he was available.
Yeah, he was available. And in this game, Sam Steele does it again. 4th goal of the season.
Wait, was that his 4th?
It was his 4th.
Do you want
I don't know how many he's actually scored himself, if that's what you're getting at.
He scored one. Because I remember for a fact, he scored one in San Jose that went off of a defender. He scored another one, I think it was LA maybe. I can't remember fully.
Yeah,
he scored another one that went off someone else.
He's producing.
And then in this game, the puck legitimately gets shot off of him, off of his skate by Silverberg and into the back of the net. I'm not sure he knew anything about it. So, yeah, Sam Steele, goal scoring specialist right there. But
here's a question.
Are we too harsh? Are we too
harsh on Sam Steele?
No.
You don't think so?
So, The only spot where I think we might be too harsh is I did a little bit of a deep dive this week on some of the
Like
more.
his numbers, his RAPM charts are not terrible. They're not good, but they're not like there's worse.
Yeah.
There's worse on this team.
Yes. I think the issue is I think in his current role as a fourth liner, he's fine. I think that's where he deserves to be right now.
Yeah, like if he just stays in this role and like does Dallas Eakins get some credit for finally coming to this realization? Sure. Sure. We'll throw him that bone, but there's still plenty to pick out there. So overall, I mean, with the rest of the team.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean the Ducks did win this game. It's part of their current winning streak. Now, is this another game where maybe they weren't necessarily the better team?
Correct.
Depends who you ask, right? I mean, they got pretty handily outplayed, I would say, in the second and third. And then first period, I guess they came out okay. That's where they did their damage. But this was not. This was another kind of low event type game that, I mean, the Ducks managed to win, but I think the big story there is John Gibson.
I mean, the big story in this game is John Gibson, the fact that Jamie Drysdale 2 minutes in left the game.
Yeah.
As a result of a hit from Jacob De La Rose, I believe is the guy
Yep.
who hit him, but it wasn't a dirty play. It was just kind of more awkward than anything else.
Mm-hmm. No, it wasn't dirty.
And so, John Gibson was absolutely phenomenal in this game. And I mean, he was the main reason. This is a game where you look at the scoreline, it was a 4-1 final score. But I mean, this was a 2-1 game, 2 empty netters late. This is not one where the Ducks dominated like the scoreline would suggest. This was a 2-1 game with the Blues pushing to get the equalizer, and the Ducks were able to hit the empty net as a result. And so, I mean, this was the strategy for success early on in this season for the Ducks when they were picking up some wins. Score a couple goals early, get a lead, rely on John Gibson, and sit back. And so the funny thing is that Dallas Eakins actually acknowledged that strategy in some quotes and said that they can't really do that anymore, even though that's the exact strategy that they did in this game.
And that they did today, arguably.
Yeah, and so regardless of that, this was I think a good game if you're a Ducks fan to see John Gibson bounce back with a actually above average performance, especially with this first game, being back in the lineup for the Ducks after being hurt for a little bit of time. And so concerning obviously with Drysdale going out, but good news on him afterwards with the fact that he was able to take part in practice and be able to move forward from that. So, I mean, this was the first game the Ducks won, I think, against the Blues this season. I think they were 0-4 going into this game. And obviously, like you said, this was the first regulation win since February 11th for the Ducks. Mm-hmm. And so, big news there, but I don't know if I would necessarily read into this game as kind of the game that the Ducks decided to finally play this fantastic style game. But yeah, so what people were coming at me for was essentially saying 11 forward 7D is not a great look and wow and all this kind of stuff. And they were like, wow, well, the Ducks won. They played this complete game. This was not a complete game.
And that's the funny thing is that I've already seen people say, well, look, they've won both games and they're doing it this way, so clearly it must work. I mean, I think they're winning despite this approach. I don't think this approach is anywhere near the reason that they're winning. If anything, it's making these games harder to win. So the fact that they've won them is more impressive just from that sense. I don't really have a ton of takeaways from this game. I mean, did you think that Trevor Zegras played as awfully as Dallas Eakins made it out to be? I guess that's really the only question I would have about this game.
I mean, I don't think he had a fantastic game, but I don't think he was that negative. I mean, I think that the issue that Dallas Eakins has is that he's stuck in this mentality, I think, of...
And, like, Zegras barely played in this game. He played 9:36 at 5-on-5, which was only 7 more minutes than Drysdale, who left the game.
Fire Carlisle, by the way, says they're winning games because NHL teams don't lose 17 in a row unless you're the Sabres.
Yeah.
But
there you go.
The thing on Zegras is maybe he didn't play his best game ever, and he's had some up and down games throughout the season. He's had some games where you can see the world beating level of skill, and he shows it entire shifts. Sometimes it's only a shift or two. But here's the thing. Dallas Eakins, he had a quote saying you said it wasn't his best game. The writing was on the wall, him getting a game off, different things like that. But here's the issue here right now is that, and especially with this game, with him getting 9:36 of ice time at even strength, this is a lost season. No one on that coaching staff should believe that this season they can make the playoffs. They're like, it's
Do
just,
they?
but like, it's just not possible.
There's no way they do, right?
I don't know. Who
I mean,
knows?
I actually kind of hope not. And I know people think, oh, you should always have someone who's willing to fight to the bitter end. But like, come on, like,
We're past the bitter end.
yeah, like this is, Custer's last stand is over. Like the battle has been lost.
Yeah, and so I mean, Dalton Key says Dallas Eakins has started using the rebuild word.
Yeah,
and
they
so,
all have. Even Bob Murray,
if
who said it wasn't part of his vocabulary, by the way. Turns out it is.
Which is like, if that is where you're at, then why not just play him? Like, play him. Give him minutes. Like, stop like screwing around with it. Play him. This is stupid.
Rant alert?
Half rant. Like, it's stupid. It's stupid to do this. Stop playing games. Stop playing games with this kid that's the future of the franchise. Play him or don't play him. If you don't play him, send him to the AHL where he's going to play. If he's going to be on the NHL, play him.
It does feel like this is becoming kind of like a waste of time.
Yeah.
A little bit. Like, he needs reps. He needs to play.
Yeah.
And if you're just going to do this so that, Derek Grant can get his 15 minutes, so that Sam Steele can get his minutes, like, it's just, this is actually kind of a waste. I mean, you could argue even this limited usage in the NHL is worth it. Look, and this is the thing. Like, we're not here saying that Trevor Zegras has been awesome every game or that he's this kind of infallible player. There's definitely been moments, there's definitely been games where he hasn't been that good, but that is all kind of part of the learning process. Yep. And Dallas Eakins even said that today. Like, Dallas Eakins is not like completely out of touch with reality here. It's just his view of how to teach these lessons is to take him out of the game completely. And I don't know. I mean, I just don't like we've said before on this show. I don't think Dallas Eakins wanted to have Zegras on this team. I don't think Dallas Eakins thinks he's NHL ready, and he just kind of has to make do with what he's got. And that's just what it is, right? I mean, am I wrong there?
Nope, you're not. So,
I mean, he even insinuated that he's like, well, he's riding the roller coaster, which is what happens when you're not totally ready. And it's like, well, yep, there you go. You're just saying what we all thought what we all thought you were, how you viewed this player.
Yep, exactly. So that's it, really. I think for that game. The other two games were the two games in Minnesota, and we can just kind of briefly touch on them. The Ducks ended up losing both of these games. One of them 2-1, one of them 3-2, and so they ended up losing both those games to the Wild. I think the most noteworthy thing from this series was the fact that the Ducks were shorthanded for that second game due to COVID. The fact that I guess there was a false positive test within the Ducks roster, and due to contact tracing, some guys were held out. It was Heinen, and the false positive, I actually got that information from the Ducks radio broadcast. They mentioned that. So it was Heinen, it was Stolars, it was Hutton, and it was Larson. Yep. So those were the four that were held out. Lucas Dostal, there you go, John. Pronounced it correctly this time.
You'll surely revert back
100%.
In like 10 minutes.
100%. Was the backup to Ryan Miller in this game. The Ducks weirdly went with 5 right-handed D. For some reason, played Andy Welinski instead of Cody Curran, who Curran is a left-handed shot defenseman, and so went 5 right-handed shot instead of icing at least 2 left-handed shots.
I don't have an issue with that.
I don't either, but it's just it's odd to me that Cody Curran is this black sheep for the team.
I just don't get why he can't get into the lineup. That's the part that does baffle the mind a bit. I mean, we should note that Max Comtois scored in the second game.
We should mention he was scratched in the first game.
Yep, was scratched, and I think it was his first scratch of the season.
Correct.
And I actually kind of was somewhat okay with it, and I know maybe this is going to seem inconsistent, but Max Comtois has actually been like terrible defensively this season, like real bad. I mean, if you look at all the numbers, he, when he's out there, the Ducks bleed shot attempts against, they bleed expected goals against. And look, he does somewhat make up for it with his offense. Like, he's not this net negative, but he's just not quite there yet defensively. And in the last game that he played before getting scratched, he was, I'm going to say, directly responsible for, I think it was the first or second goal against Arizona. And, really bad turnover in the offensive zone, and then just kind of gave up on the back check. Maybe he didn't give up so strong, but like, he didn't show the full intensity getting back, or couldn't get back, however you want to frame it. And coaches noticed that stuff, and he got benched for almost the entire second period. He played like 2 shifts in the second period on Saturday
Yep.
last week. So he was scratched on Monday, and the Ducks went 7D because that's what you got to do in those situations. And now we're kind of mixing the two games together. But good on Max Comtois, though, to stick it to the coaching staff and get a goal in his first game back. And I don't think we're going to see him scratched again too many times. I just think like it was getting to that point, though.
Probably
Like
not.
I actually didn't mind him being scratched because I felt like with him it was somewhat warranted. Like I think Zegras hasn't had those kind of games where you just have to take him out, like where he's just such a negative.
I guess I come back to what are we trying to accomplish here?
Yeah, and look, I mean, I think that what they're trying to accomplish is this sense of accountability, this sense of, hey, when things aren't going great, we're gonna just kind of slow things down, have you watch, and hopefully that'll help. Now, I don't know how much a guy just going in the gym for half the game and then sitting up in the press box for the other half, or however they do it. Like, I don't know how much a guy actually benefits from that. Maybe just getting out of the bustling pace of the season and just slowing down a little bit, that can be beneficial. I actually just don't know how much a guy benefits from being scratched if the idea is to have him understand the game better. Like I put it out there, I think they should spend part of the game just with the video coaches, just like actually be in the room with the nitty gritty, see what they're talking about, see what like they're looking for. Like that would be more beneficial than just sitting up there by yourself or getting in a workout, like use that opportunity to rest and learn.
Yeah.
So with Max Comtois, I just think that's where he's at. Like if you watch his game, he is a good offensive player. He has this ability to find open ice. He has a good shot. He's got a good frame, but defensively, like this has been a theme all year long. Like his reads, that's the biggest thing for me is his reads. Like he just passes it to the other team. You can tell that he's thinking almost the right thing, but then the execution isn't there because he's not totally sure.
I can't find the exact quote right now, but he had a post game quote that really stuck out to me in terms of Max Comtois.
Oh, the like, how they're going to benefit from this season. Is that the one?
Yeah. And I found it very interesting, kind of his view on it, because he didn't take the stance of we need to win now. That wasn't the stance that he took from it.
He said that they're going to learn from all this and they're going to learn how to win from losing, essentially.
Correct. And I think that was the first take I've heard from this young player on this team, because I think even Troy Terry said, like, we need to be winning games now. We need to be learning to win. And I think Comtois was, I think, the first player to, have the correct mindset for this season. I thought that was really important to hear, I think. I mean, at the end of the day, it's all talk, but it was interesting.
He also hit the post in that game where he scored. So, like, that's just what he does. And he even said it, like, I'm not going to stop going to the net. It's what I've been doing all year, and I'm not going to change. And so, I actually didn't hate that scratch. Like, that's the weird thing with Akins is there are like certain scenarios, certain files, if you want to call them that he seems to actually handle well, that he manages well. And there are others where he just couldn't be more off. So
yeah, and
it is what it is.
So to briefly talk about the Wild games, like we did with the Blues games, I think that these weren't horrible performances from the Ducks. They were on definitely, especially the 2-1 loss. They were on the lower side of the expected goals battle in both games, honestly, at 5-on-5, and then similarly on the power play in all situations when you look at it. But I mean, at the end of the day, the Ducks didn't get great goaltending from Ryan Miller throughout both the games. He was basically exactly as expected throughout both games, and at the end of the day, that wasn't enough for them in this series to be able to pull out a win. And I mean, it just kind of went to Ryan Miller had some solid games, like he played fine, but he was expected. He didn't go above and beyond, I think, for the Ducks. It's not as if they lost because of him, but I mean, it's the same story with Ryan Miller. I mean, it's the same story with the Ducks goaltending. They're able to win games when the goaltending's excellent and above expected. When the goaltending is just expected, they lose games. It's that simple.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know if that's that controversial. I don't know if I'm oversimplifying it, but that's kind of where it is.
Yeah. So on that note, I mean, did you have anything else you wanted to address from this week before maybe we start migrating to listener questions?
The only other thing that we had from this week, so there were two articles on The Athletic that came out. One was from Pierre LeBrun where he talked to Bob Murray. And
not a whole lot in that article.
No, it really felt the way this article felt to me was basically Pierre LeBrun talking to Bob Murray and essentially just reiterating exactly kind of what we've heard from Bob Murray, but almost to just a more national audience because it is Pierre LeBrun. The only thing that to me came out of it of note is the fact that Ryan Getzlaf, basically Murray completely poo-pooed the idea of trading him, basically saying he's happy here. I'm not asking him to waive his no
But
movement clause.
Here's the thing, Jake. Despite the fact that this has been routinely shot down by Bob Murray, Eric Stevens wrote an entire article about where could Ryan Getzlaf go. So are they so against it or so thinking it's not going to happen?
Yeah, I think it's not happening. I think
I
that
don't think it's happening either, but I just found it interesting that article got written because it just seems like if it's so impossible, which the article did acknowledge, then why exactly is it being
even
written
being
about? I don't
talked
know.
about. I mean, Bob Murray. Bob Murray has come out and been pissed at Toronto media for drumming up that narrative. So,
So now the local media is gonna just drum it back up.
yep, exactly. So, and so I think that's really. I mean, the only other thing was basically Murray said it's quiet, but who knows if Murray's actually being
I mean,
honest there
he
or
just
if he's
trying to
playing the
drum up some
market,
interest. Yeah,
playing the
yeah.
market a bit.
Who honestly knows? I mean, there was a fan survey
Yep.
that was put up by the Athletic, which I mean, I don't think was surprising either. Like a lot of people are really pissed at Bob Murray. According to the 694 responses of who is to blame for the Ducks' poor season to date, Bob Murray got 73.5% of the votes. So a landslide victory there for Bob Murray. I do find it interesting that Dallas Eakins got 13.7%, and then the players and ownership each got 6.5 and 6.3% respectively. So some people are frustrated with the ownership, and I mean, I've debated you and CJ on this a lot, but I think that although I think the Samiolis are good owners generally speaking for this team, this is maybe one of those times where you would like to see them just be a bit more involved because like it feels like the ship is not really going anywhere fast and no one is really there to steer it essentially.
Yeah, I think
Steer
that
it back in the right direction.
I think that's fair. My counter to that would be I don't know how much of that you can do necessarily mid-season this year specifically, especially with the coaching staff. The fact that I mean, what are you going to do? You're going to if you fired and this has been my stance on firing Dallas Eakins.
Now it feels like kind of pointless, right? Because
Yeah.
we're just so far along. But I think moving forward, I will become more critical of them if they don't do anything like in the next year because it
Yeah.
just feels like now is the time you can reel this thing back in, but you don't have a huge window to do it. Another result from that survey, what decisions should Ducks ownership make after the season? 65.5% said part with Bob Murray and Dallas Eakins. Would you agree with that?
Yes.
Do both need to go or can you part with just one?
Both.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think, if you really want to give Dallas Eakins a chance under a different approach with maybe a bit of a different roster, you could try that. But like, how much more evidence do we need that as you play with your cat Salem in the background? I love that she's making her scheduled cameo here.
She is. She knows.
I was just gonna say, like, how much more of a track record do we need on Dallas Eakins to say he might just be not that good of an NHL coach?
Well, I think honestly, my bigger point there is I want the GM to be able to have his choice of coaches, pick who he wants, let him build this team around in the exact fashion that he wants.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's the way you got to do it. Just rebuild. Just go completely. Give that person, that new GM, a blank canvas and go from there.
Yeah.
Anything else stick out to you from this survey?
No, I think that's pretty much it for me on the survey. And so, yeah, I think that's basically all of it. Anything else from you?
No, I mean, look, I feel like we live this survey on a daily basis just through social media, through Twitter, through our Discord channel. So a lot of the stuff that I was read on like the responses it's like, hey, I've read that before a million times.
Yeah. So question time?
Yeah, we've got about 15 minutes here, so we can do a decent amount of questions, I think.
Yeah. So for those of you watching the version of this podcast on YouTube, yes, the video portion does get posted to YouTube after we do the live stream. You can go to youtube.com/crashthepond. One thing we're really trying to push is to get some more subscribers. I see that we have more viewers than we do subscribers. So if you're watching this video, liking what you're seeing, go hit subscribe. If you watch us or in other places, go hit subscribe on YouTube. It helps out a bunch, and obviously all your favorite podcast services. But our real fun thing is our Twitch stream. We do it each and every Sunday at 8 p.m. Except one thing we should probably announce is the draft lottery. So not next weekend, but the weekend after. We will not be doing a podcast on Sunday. We are going to be doing it at Monday night at 8 p.m. so that the podcast will be going live after the draft lottery. But if you want to help support the show, you can go to twitch.tv/crashthepond. You knew about that, Felix. Don't act surprised.
Oh.
And go support the show. If you have Amazon Prime, you get one free Twitch Prime subscription each and every month. It helps support the show more than you can imagine. And you get special emotes in the chat, special badges next to your name. And so we will start getting to some questions. So first off, throw questions in the chat if you've got them. Add some question in there, and we will start getting to them. So Dalton Keys has a question. Do you think that Trevor Zegras will hit the 25-game NHL mark this season? So Zegras is currently, just for reference, at 15 games. And
does he play 10 more?
Does he play 10 more?
What is stopping him from playing 10 more?
Dallas Eakins?
Well, I guess the question would be how many more back-to-backs do the Ducks have?
I don't know.
And there's your answer on how many he's guaranteed to miss. Well, my thing with Trevor Zegras, like, is there going to be a point? Like, I think a question to build off of that question, because I think it's part of the answer or part of the potential answer, is will Trevor Zegras go back to the AHL this season? Is that a possibility? Because if it is a possibility, then I think the 25 NHL games is definitely in doubt, as your cat Salem is scaling your computer.
She was walking right in front of my monitor, behind the monitor the whole time, and I was trying to get her out of there. So got her.
That's funny.
So what were your question? What was it one more time? Sorry, it was dealing with that little fun thing.
Sorry, I'm dealing with. Has anyone here ever used the app Instacart, like to do your grocery shopping? Do you want to hear a funny anecdote?
We are just off the rails.
Do you want to hear something funny?
Sure.
I know I shouldn't be putting. Maybe this is going to cost us a sponsorship. Who knows? Whatever. So this lady, or my delivery person, she says they send you a chat if the item isn't available, and she says, "Hey, this item is not available. Which one on this shelf in this picture would you like me to replace it with?" And this is the picture she sent me. Just an empty shelf asking me which product I want to replace it. And and so the ETA for my order was 8:45. I just asked, what is the ETA? And I got 9 with a period. And it's 9:19 as we speak. So that's my life right now. That's been the kind of day I've had.
Fun times.
Anyway,
yes,
but does he go back to the AHL? Do you think he goes back?
No.
Yeah, I don't think so either. I mean, I just think it seems like they are at least somewhat committed to having him develop at the NHL level, regardless of how weirdly they're going to go about it. But I think he will hit the 25 game mark, just to answer Dalton's question there.
Yep. And so CJK Chell asked us, how do you feel about the game tomorrow? They haven't looked too bad against the Avs this season. So how do you feel about the Ducks versus Avalanche tomorrow? I mean, little preview time. Go ahead and preview it.
So, well, I think we will see Jamie Drysdale tomorrow. That seems to be the expectation. Eric Stevens putting that out there. We'll probably see Trevor Zegras. I don't think we'll see Rakell. And so, with all of that being said, I think it should be a fun lineup for the Ducks. You'll have both Jamie in there and Trevor Zegras, and you'll also have probably Ryan Miller in net. I mean, I don't think Stolars is getting it back to back, even though why not? Just go crazy. Ryan Miller in there. The thing is, though, the Ducks are running into possibly the best team in the NHL right now in the Colorado Avalanche. They are an absolute buzzsaw. And even though the Ducks have had some success against them this season, like
the Avalanche are playing at a different level right now. I mean,
the Avalanche have come up since that time.
I mean, if you look at the games against the Avalanche from basically the games in January and earlier in March, the Ducks did okay. They were in the 40-ish range in terms of expected goals for percentage, even in the 50% in the very first game. But the last game against the Avalanche, it was at 26% expected goals for percentage. Like, the Avalanche were just at another level. The Avalanche are the best team in the league right now, and I think that they have to be Cup favorites as of right now. And so to me, that's kind of the big thing for the Ducks looking forward to tomorrow is basically how do they not get run over?
Yeah, and like they'll have a fun lineup. Like I think that this could be an enjoyable game just from that perspective. But yeah, I don't know how it's going to go, especially depending on what kind of Ryan Miller shows up. Because if been the Ryan Miller that's really struggled at times, then they could they could be in some trouble there.
Yeah. So Sean D. Salisbury asks, and I think this is a good question, like a really, really good one. What's the rational goal for the rest of the season for the Ducks with the playoffs being out of the question,
The
obviously?
rational goal. What do we mean by that?
What would be your goal for this Ducks franchise for the rest of the season?
Just like on a day-to-day
I think
basis.
on an overall level, if you're looking for a goal for them for the rest of the season, something you want to see from them, whether it be a point total hit, whether it's
I
however you
want
want
to
to assume.
So if I were in charge, quote unquote, or if I was like the one setting these
By
parameters,
by by the way, Bob Murray fake GM chimes in our Twitch chat saying they're not out of the playoffs. So just for everyone out there, Bob Murray,
I'm
important
so
right there.
happy that we have Bob Marine that's in the chat. No, the rest of the goal should not be about wins and losses. If anything, it should be about a lot of losses. The goal should just be to play a solid brand of hockey, to just play a respectable 5-on-5 game, to not have these kind of games where you're getting brutally outshot, where you need to rely on your goaltender, to rely on, with all due respect to Anthony Stolarz, but a bit of a journeyman to bail you out. I would also really stress play the kids as much as possible. Like make this about them. Make this an internal competition. Who can put up the most points? Who can do the best in their respective roles? Like that's what this should be about. That to me is the rational goal: is to have the kids and even the veterans just like see what you've got, who you can keep around for the future. I mean, unfortunately, I think for the veterans, you're trying to move on from as many of them as possible. But to me, this should be about the kids. Play the kids and try to just play a respectable brand of hockey. Those are the two goals.
Yep. 100% agreed. I would like to see more games above expected goals for percentage. I think if you're looking for wins and losses types of thing, obviously playing against the top end of this division is going to be tough, but I think you would want to see them outplay the Kings, outplay the Sharks, outplay the Coyotes.
Yeah, like those kind of games, and the Ducks have done that at times. They have done well against the likes of the Kings and Sharks, but make that a habit and not just something that happens every once in a while.
Yep. And so Spence Curry 30 says, how many more games do you think Stolarz will get to play this season? So there are currently, just so you know, 21 games left in the season. He's obviously not going to play
Are there
tomorrow.
really?
Yeah,
Man,
20 games
that
left
went by
after
fast.
tomorrow. 20 games left after tomorrow. How many games do you think Stolarz will get?
I don't know. First off, of course, I don't know. But the thing is, I don't know what's going on with John Gibson because he finally came back and now he's hurt again. So are they just going to hold him out the rest of the way? I'll go bold. I'll say he plays 7 games.
I think 5.
Yeah, I was going to say 5, but I didn't want to be a coward. So
Oh,
I went 7.
wow. Oh,
I
wow.
went 7. I went
Okay.
7.
Bionic Chris said, "Do you guys think think we'll get a game without? Do you think that we'll get a game without any of the so-called veterans?"
It's going to be hard for that to happen because there's only a certain amount of kids that you have and
Yeah.
that you're going to play. But I just don't think the Ducks are even willing to trade all their veterans anyway. So I don't see that happening. Sorry.
Yep, agreed. Ginger Wolf said, "We know teams don't tank publicly, and we know the Ducks are pretty tight-lipped about literally everything. Is it possible that Murray has full faith in Aikens because he's encouraged him to make terrible line combinations? After tonight, I can't help but think it's on purpose."
I don't think it's on purpose.
I don't either.
Sorry.
I think that Bob Murray he's come out and said he hates losing. I don't think there's any way that Bob Murray would tell them to ice a worse lineup.
Yeah, no, this is not intentional. Like if you are going to attribute some intentionality to this, the only thing you can really say is that like there are guys that are being held, like the guys that are being held out are held out for specific reasons, which is that the Ducks just don't think they can help them right now. So,
Yep. And so here's an interesting question from Fire Carlisle. Said, question, how concerning is Jakob Silverberg's lack of production this season? He only has 13 points in 36 games and still has 3 more seasons after this one at 5.25 mil. So you want to start on that one?
I mean, to be quite honest with you, I haven't done that much of a deep dive into his production this season, but I think he's played mostly fine. I mean, the player that he is just in terms of overall impact is pretty close to what he's been in the past. I don't think he's a guy who's really ever been that productive anyway. And this is also a season where this team has been pretty snake bitten. I will say this, though, despite the fact that he has been very good defensively this season, what has kind of gone down the drain is his ability to generate offense on ice. Like the Ducks are not really driving play offensively when he's out there. He's almost looking like a forward version of Yanni Hakanpää, which that is a bit concerning. I still think he's like the defensive side of it is at least somewhat encouraging just because that's who he's been in the past. But the offense there is the concern. And I just think he is a guy who's really going to depend on who he plays with moving forward.
Yeah, and you're pretty spot on there looking at some of kind of his underlying numbers. I mean, it is somewhat concerning if you look at his production from the last couple seasons. So over basically 17-18 through 19-20, he averaged about 0.84 to 0.9-ish expected goals per 60 individually, whereas now he's at 0.66. And so his shot attempts and shots on goal per 60 are pretty close to where they were, but the level of or the quality of shots that he's getting has gone down, and as part of that, his on ice production has also taken a bit of a dip. His assists, his goals per 60 is down significantly. Points per 60 is down from the past 2 seasons. So I mean, part of that is obviously going to be driven in some ways by luck and shooting percentage. He's shooting at 5-on-5, or he's shooting at 8.82.
You wouldn't expect him to produce that highly though, just based off how he's playing.
Yeah, exactly. And so I think it's a concern, but I mean, I think the issue is that this.
Well, what are you expecting from? Well,
this was the concern when that contract was signed. I mean, it's not as if I'm gonna necessarily get mad, and I think that this is kind of a lot of where my opinion comes from, is that I'm not necessarily mad at Silfverberg because he's past his prime. He's past 30 years old. This is what the stage.
Yeah, this is what the back half looks like.
Yeah,
you're gonna have up and down seasons,
and you're gonna start having the production drops, and that's just necessarily what happens. And I think people get this blown out of proportion expectation for players that what they are at their peak is what they're going to be able to continue doing into their 30s.
Jake, I thought the prime was 27 and onward. I thought that was the prime.
Yeah.
Have I been deceived by the people on TV?
Yes, exactly. You 100% have. And so it's basically, I don't know. I think there's a concern if you're looking at the overall function of the team and the fact that where he's at on his contract and everything like that, in similar fashion as to where Adam Henrique is, there's a concern over that. But the concern is the drop. And our good friend Ken Pafu, who sometimes I wonder if that's Jakob Silfverberg's burner, saying, y'all are really trying to make me unsub, aren't you, at this point in time? So it's very frustrating, I think, in terms of the looking at the contract overall. I don't necessarily blame Silfverberg for it. It's just it's what happens, honestly. So so kind of that's it on that topic. I don't know if you have anything else for that.
Well, I mean, the concern, it would be concerning that there is. I mean, I will say it is a bit of a concern that the drop off in kind of in the terms of driving offense, because last season with the Ducks, Jakob Silfverberg was still a decently positive player when it came to driving offense. Like the Ducks did tend to score when he was on the ice. Now, part of that was a bit luck driven, but they were still driving shot attempts, shot quality, not necessarily there. And, if you go back to 2 years ago,
how much do you put on his line? How much do you put on his line? Still a bit of a positive. How much do you put on his line?
The numbers we're looking at here that are trying to control for that.
Yep.
So I just think it is interesting that from a shot quality perspective, he's gone way down. From a shot attempt generation perspective, he's still kind of there. And so on balance, it's kind of like a 0. So yeah.
Yep. Yeah. And so it's I guess it's a concern for the long term of the franchise, but not necessarily shocking. Let's go with that.
Yeah, I mean, look, this is like you said, this is just how it is. Like older players, their performances are going to wax and wane, and actually, his performances have already begun to wax and wane. So,
by the way, Bonnie's saying it will be fascinating to see what these gentlemen speak like in 10 years when they are the same age as the players they criticize. I'm pretty sure I'm the same age as Jakob Silfverberg. I think I am at this point in time, which makes me now just feel old and sad about myself that I've now said, no, sorry, he is 6 months older than me.
Yeah, and also, like, this isn't personal.
Yeah.
We're just like, these are just the facts.
Yep. ODog81 says, what's your ideal trade deadline result for the Ducks?
I'm pretty sure that you should know, or that you guys should know, but I'll reiterate the ideal trade deadline is the Ducks trade their veteran players for future assets.
Trade Rakell, trade Manson, and
Yep.
potentially trade Lindholm.
This is gonna piss off Bonnie, but just trade everybody. That's trade all
You
the
said it.
veterans.
I didn't. I didn't.
I think I have a decent amount of goodwill, of equity with Bonnie to where I can say things like that. You might not, though, on the other hand.
I don't think you should trade absolutely everybody.
No, you should. I mean, would it be the worst thing in the world?
I mean,
If you can get out of Silverberg, Henrique, Lindholm,
yeah,
Manson.
yes. I would actually.
Raquel.
And Sean Seabolt saying you're trade drunk right now.
Am I trade drunk? Possibly.
It's definitely possible. J Fresh Hockey chimes in. Should the Ducks trade Drysdale for Doughty to compete now?
Oh God! And the funny thing is,
why you got to do that, J Fresh, to us?
well, the funny thing is that if you told that to Bob Murray, like I don't think he would just completely dismiss it out of hand.
Bob Murray would do it.
Bob Murray probably thinks Drew Doughty's still good.
Bob Murray would probably say, "I need to throw in an extra pick there."
Who votes for the Norris again?
GMs,
Anyway.
or no, not GMs, media.
GMs
vote for the Vezina. GMs vote for the Vezina.
Yeah. So, whatever. I mean, look at their talent evaluation on the back end, and tell me that he wouldn't think Drew Doughty's still good.
The Theodore trade. The Theodore trade.
Yep.
That's never
Yep.
like. All right. So, Jay Fresh now saying, what do they have to add to Rakell to get Dustin Brown and Jonathan Quick? Why you gotta hurt us like this? Well,
Zegras and
specifically hurt
Drysdale.
me. Specifically hurt me.
Zegras and Drysdale in the first.
All right. Lewis X209 said, I feel like we've gotten asked this, but might as well do it again. It's a fun one. Which hockey arena is a top of your bucket list to see a game in?
Is this too much of a vanilla take? But Madison Square Garden, haven't been.
I mean, for me, it's a very vanilla take. It's the Bell Center.
That's not vanilla. That's the correct answer. But I've already been to the Bell Center, so that's not my answer.
Yeah.
No Canadian cities outside of Bell Center I'm interested in. Sorry.
Yeah.
So all the disrespect.
All the disrespect. Jay Fresh is just calling out all of the Ducks right now. Just going at it in our chat. Gotta respect it. Shout out to him, one of the best hockey minds out there.
Now is the time to contend. It's true. It's true. Everybody's in their primes. Look, if you're 27 through 32, you're in your prime, according to what I'm being told on the broadcast every now and again.
According to John or Brian Hayward and John Allers, I almost just mushed their names together. Sean Seabolt, let's end with this question. By the way, Jay Fresh, good night. Thank you for tuning in. Keep up the awesome work. Sean Seabolt said, what can the Ducks get for John Gibson?
Ooh, well, see, now you're talking. Now you're what's the expression? Now you're cooking it with gas, something like that. Anyway.
Sure, gaslighter.
Wow, going there. I think that counts as gaslighting. Anyway, you can probably get just think about all the things you want. A first round pick, a really good prospect, maybe another prospect, maybe another pick. You can get a lot for John Gibson, I think. I mean, what is concerning now is this injury resume that's kind of creeping back up again.
Yeah, agreed. Let's end with this, actually.
Maybe you were wrong after all, Jake, that Gibson is injury prone.
If he plays the amount of
maybe your nemesis was indeed correct.
I mean, if he plays the proper amount of games that he should at the end of it all, does it matter?
I don't know. I don't know what we're talking about anymore.
All right, let's end with this. This is a non-hockey question from Lewis. How do you order your steak?
Medium rare is, I believe, the only correct choice.
Medium rare or rare is the correct choice.
Yeah, rare is fine.
Don't be a coward.
I mean, I've got nothing against rare. I prefer medium rare just because it's a little easier to eat. But I will say this: when I cook at home and it's rare, I don't mind it as much. When it's rare at a restaurant, I'm a little, for whatever reason, maybe it's irrational, I'm a little more. Even like a medium isn't the end of the world. To Lewis's question, yeah, blue rare.
Is that just raw?
Yeah, it's basically just like you sear it for like a minute on each side, and yeah. The correct choice is raw, and then cook it yourself. I'm confused by that.
That is, you order a steak from a restaurant raw, and then you just take it home and cook.
Why would you do that?
I don't know. Ask Tony. Ask Jacob Silverberg.
I know people who like, I have a coworker who likes their steak well done. Like, not even joking you. I'm not saying this like for the meme. Like, he actually believes this. And I've fought him on it before, and just no, dedicated to the medium, to the well done.
It has to be a meme. It has to be for the
No,
memes.
it's not. I mean, he's also not the brightest, so that doesn't help. But you know,
Just,
as
just,
evidenced,
just,
as evidenced by the
just,
take.
just called out. What if he
Yeah.
listens to this podcast, Felix?
Oh, I mean, him and I banter quite a bit during working hours, so it's par for the course.
But yeah, medium rare is the correct answer. If I'm at home, I actually cook my steaks a little bit more rare than medium, or than medium rare.
I just go 4 minutes aside, and wherever the dice roll lands, the dice roll lands. You
Wow,
know,
4 minutes
cast iron,
aside, long time.
cast iron pan. I mean, well, if the steak is perfectly like room temp, like low end room temp, then I'll do maybe 3 to 3.5 minutes aside. But I like my 4 minutes aside. It rarely lets me down, and you should try it too. Maybe your steaks will be a little less raw.
Fine, fine. Just
Called out.
just called out. All right, so I think that's probably gonna do it for us tonight. I don't know if you,
I had another question. Your favorite cut of steak?
I do. My answer is gonna be very much a pinky up answer, but it's the filet mignon.
Really?
Yeah.
Interesting. I don't think that's that pinky up. I think that's kind of a niche take.
What?
Well, I mean, so I'm of two minds on this. I love a great ribeye. A great ribeye is hard to beat, but there are actually a lot of subpar ribeyes, and you have to be careful and watch for those that are like almost too fatty. The most consistent to me, and this is a bit of a vanilla take, is the New York steak. It is very consistent.
I want to briefly mention that our viewership has gone up during Steak Talk.
People love food. People love food, as they should. People saying sirloin, I mean, can't go wrong with that. Filet is great, but a really good, like a really well, high quality, whatever you want to say, for the New York steak, it can be close to like a great ribeye, just in the tenderness, because they can have decent marbling too.
See, for me, I'm not the biggest fan of a very fatty cut. I like cuts that are a little bit leaner.
Well, yeah,
that's why I like filet.
Filet mignon is not that.
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. Bonnie's chiming in saying food is greater than trade talk. We don't have any trade talk right now. There's
Crash
nothing.
the steak. Crash the steak podcast. I will happily do a stream of us cooking steak. Like, because
I will not, because I will just get made fun of the whole time.
I can see, we could do a stream of me teaching you how to cook a steak.
I know how to cook a steak.
I don't think you do if you're afraid. If you're afraid, then that means you're not confident.
The last time I cooked a steak, I did half on stovetop in a cast iron pan, half in the oven.
Did you have a thermometer for your steak?
No.
I
based it off of something
dice
I
roll.
said with the number of times.
That is a dice roll. You got to have.
And Lewis,
by
the way, obviously,
thermometer.
no steak sauce. No steak sauce on your steak. If you have steak sauce on your steak, then you've done something wrong.
Well, if you have, like, what is it called?
A1.
I'm really hoping I don't butcher this.
A1 steak sauce.
Chimichurri sauce.
Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
Something like that.
Well, when he says steak sauce, he specifically means A1.
Oh, yeah. I mean, you know why you need that, right?
Because you have a well-done steak.
Yeah, because you have a bad, well-done steak. So yeah, don't do it. Don't do that. Don't hurt yourself like that. It's not necessary. There's enough pain out there in the world.
Ginger Wolf says I'm a grandma with that technique.
Really?
The steak,
no,
the oven one.
Well, that's the it's not the. Is it the reverse sear? It's the reverse sear.
You sear it, and then you put it in the oven to finish cooking on the inside.
It's the double reverse sear. You sear and then cook.
Yeah.
Whereas the reverse sear is you cook and then sear, which I find that one really difficult. What you should try, if you haven't already, is sous videing.
I don't have a sous videing thing, so
I have one, and it is.
Want to let me borrow it?
I mean, sure.
Yeah, Lewis basically is saying that he basically came out with or added that question because he wanted to catch us with some bad takes, and we've passed the test.
We flexed.
Yeah, there are a lot of bad takes that you can find in the Crash the Pond Discord for the Patreon. We'll get to that in a second. Steak talk is not one that will be a bad take.
No, I think we've passed the test, but we should probably make our way out here.
Yes,
it's been it's lonely on Bad Take Island. Love that. Yeah, no Salem questions.
Hey, that's on you guys. I don't ask the questions. I just read them. No one asks Salem questions on this podcast.
All right. Well, guys, I'm going to start wrapping up here. Thanks everybody for listening, for chiming in. To everybody, whether it was live or whether you're listening right now on the recorded version. Thanks for hanging in there. I mean, it is kind of baffling to me that we have only 21 games left in the season. It feels like just yesterday where we were dying for it to come back, and now it's almost gone. So if you have enjoyed the show today, if you've enjoyed the ride along with us this season, got a few ways to support us. So if you go to our Patreon page, patreon.com/crashthepond, for $1 a month, you get access to our Discord chat, which I'm pretty sure we've referred to a bunch of times here on this show. It's a lot of fun. You get to connect with other diehard Ducks fans. And unlike the rest of the internet, it's actually not like a toxic place. People are nice to each other, and people just want to have a good time and discuss ideas or just mess around, discuss our different in and out orders, just stuff like that. So that's for $1 a month. For $5 a month, you get access to 2 bonus episodes. And on those, we talk about different topics like, we've done some that are deep dives about the Ducks, about the rest of the NHL, rankings, awards talk, but we've also done just totally off script, Mandalorian, video games, you name it. So if you enjoyed the banter of our show, I think that you will definitely enjoy the bonus episodes. Now for $15 a month, bigger commitment, but you get a lot more out of it. You get everything that we just discussed, but you also get 2 watch alongs a month. So 2 times a month, we will actually do a live broadcast of a Ducks game. We'll give you the YouTube link. There's a live chat, so we'll be able to discuss with you there, but we'll basically be commentating the game. So giving you that alternative feed. If you are sick of hearing your run-of-the-mill commentary, well, we can give you, I think, a much different take on it. So that's at patreon.com/crashthepond. Now, of course, if money is a little tight, that's totally understandable. There's still plenty of ways to support us that have no cost monetarily. If you search for Crash the Pond on Apple Podcasts, we would greatly appreciate you to leave us a 5-star rating and a review. And we actually got a new review this week, so I'm excited to share it. Jake, are you ready for this?
Yes, let's go for it. And I believe this is from actually someone in our Patreon Discord. So shout out to, I believe it's Benjamin. So thank you.
Yeah, Ben TH 1997 left this review. Great listen and good hockey insight. I was a casual hockey fan for a long time until about 3 seasons ago, and listening to this podcast has helped me learn a lot about hockey. I'm not usually an analytics type guy, but I like hearing how Jake, Felix, and CJ break down the analytics. I would highly recommend this podcast to any Ducks fan. So thank you so much for that, Ben. It does mean a lot. It also does help us out a lot. And that's kind of what we try to do here is bridge the gap, right? Because I think for a lot of people, learning the sport can be tricky. It's not like football or basketball where there's plays that you can look for, right? Like just set plays. And I think analytics kind of gives you a tool to understand it better, what to look for, what works and what doesn't. And that's what we strive for, I would say.
That's exactly what we strive for. And one thing I want to mention is we're currently at 195 Apple Podcast reviews throughout all countries. So that's not just the US, but every country that has Apple and has the ability to leave reviews. So let's try to get 200. So if anyone out there has not left a review yet, if you like what you're listening to, anything like that, go to Apple Podcasts, leave us a review, help us break 200. I believe we have by far the most reviews out of any kind of Ducks related podcast out there. And I really just want to break 200, smash through that threshold.
Yeah, let's break through.
And one thing also I want to mention, speaking, because this goes perfectly with what you had said right now about what we try to do on this show. But we try to kind of bring in new fans, help them out with understanding kind of more analytics, different things like that. Do you recall last episode how at the very beginning you had said it's Monday is National West Virginia Day or something like that, right?
Oh, yeah. I know where this is going.
We had a YouTube comment right away from Copers30 that said, I'm a new Ducks fan from West Virginia, and after that blatant disrespect, maybe a former Ducks fan from West Virginia. First time listening, you guys are going to be instrumental in me learning hockey. Hope you're ready for that responsibility.
I'm ready. We've been carrying that load for years now, so no issues there. We got to get out to West Virginia sometime. Just give it a look. Give it an honest look.
Yeah, after you just straight up disrespected it off the top.
I need to go on a peacemaking trip to West Virginia to quell the masses.
You just need to over the loudspeaker like play exactly what you said so that you can just
No,
apologize for it.
no, that is not the tact that I will take. Um, but so different ways you can support us. Check out Spotify. Jake just brought it up. YouTube.com/Crash the Pond. Make sure to subscribe there and turn on your notifications so that you know when we post videos and you can see Jake's awesome thumbnails. They are awesome.
Thank you.
Now, a couple of other things, last things here. Check us out on social media. Jake is on Twitter at ReindeerGames91. I'm on Twitter at Felix_Sicard. At Crash the Pond is on Twitter and on Facebook. Lastly here, check out crashthepond.com/shop. We have t-shirts, we have hoodies, we have the eggplant and jade logo, we have the orange logo, we have orange, black, and white t-shirts, gray, white, and black hoodies. So, it's almost summertime here in Southern California. It kind of felt like it this weekend, to be honest. Got up into the 80s in some areas. But, at night, still a little nippy. Still need that hoodie. So crashthepond.com/shop. There you go. And when it warms up, you can just take off that hoodie and you've got a nice Crash the Pond t-shirt underneath to look fly in and to let people know that, hey, I am representing the best of the best. The analytically friendly podcast. Analytically sound podcast. Our underlying metrics are, I think, pretty solid.
Yes, I think that we have good underlying metrics.
So on that note, guys, thanks so much for listening. Have a great rest of your week, I believe. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. I am so sorry. I forgot this. So sorry I forgot this. This week, big holiday coming up. You want to guess what it is?
Which one do we want to pick from? There's April Fool's. Isn't there Good Friday? There's Easter Sunday.
Yeah, April Fool's. That's the one. Ding, ding, ding. So giddy up. Get your April Fool's jokes ready because this could be an interesting year for April Fool's. I think there's a lot of possibilities here. Anyway, on that note, guys, we will talk to you next week. Have a good one.
Bye.